This is a series where I go through Facebook Marketplace and tell you how I would, as a furniture refinisher, refinish the pieces that I'm seeing on there. And I just came across this bad boy and thought it might be a good option. As with any furniture makeover, the first step is to thoroughly clean the piece. If it were me doing the makeover, I would use TSP Solution. It's a heavy-duty degreaser and deglosser. If you're doing this project, I would just recommend using Dawn dish soap in some hot water. It will work just as fine. So you're going to take all these drawers out, take the hardware off of the drawers, and then just give it a good wipe down and let everything thoroughly dry. I'd also keep the knobs, but I'm not going to use them once this is made over, but like, they're cute enough. They could work on something. Then I'm going to want to remove this finish, whatever, this orangey red. And based on this little part here, I'm going to go ahead and assume this is a latex paint, and just kind of like the texture on it's giving me like latex vibes. And I can see that the drawers are solid wood. We'll deal with this liner later. And because of the shape of the piece, the fact that there's casters on it, although they don't look like maybe they're original, I don't know. In this back piece, they forgot to paint a little bit of it. I'm pretty sure the body is solid wood as well. The shape of it looks like it's kind of a vintage piece. So I'm going to use a paint stripper on this. The one that I use typically is called Easy Clean. It's like, it doesn't smell quite as chemically. So on the top of all the drawers and one side of the body at a time, I'm going to put the furniture stripper on super thick, apply it with like a foam brush or a chip brush. Apply more than you think you need, and then I like to put plastic wrap over it. Not super eco-friendly, but it makes the stripper not dry out before you scrape it off. Leave it for as long as the directions say, and then maybe a little bit longer. And then go through with a plastic or metal scraper and just scrape, hopefully, all of this paint off. Clean it up with some mineral spirits on some fine steel wool afterwards, and it should get any residue that remains, as well as clean the surface. And then I like to grab a shop rag or microfiber cloth and just put it in clean water, wipe it all down to get rid of any leftover residue. Make sure you're wearing proper protection while you're doing this project, by the way. And then in theory, you should be left with a full wood dresser that probably will need some sanding. So once it thoroughly dries, you're going to go in with like 150 to 200 grit sandpaper, sand everything down, and then I would go back in with like 300 grit sandpaper just to kind of close in those wood grains and sand the whole piece. You can do it by hand or use an orbital sander. It will make it a little bit easier. Then depending how it's looking, I might just leave it as is or potentially stain it. If I'm leaving it as is, I may just go in with a clear wax and buff it into the finish, let it sit for a while, and then wipe away the excess. If I were to stain it, I would use a oil-based stain. First, use an oil-based wood conditioner to prime it. And then after that's all done, I would go in with a water-based polyurethane like the next day, 2 days later, and put a top coat on, probably either a matte or satin. Running out of time, but I would also get rid of this, and if it was nice underneath, just leave as is. Follow for